Making a video like this one is sort of a hard topic to cover in Space Station. I sort of covered something similar in my beginner guide, or my control guide, but the control guide is still unfocused for in terms of how to survive. So basically, I'm just going to do how to survive the station being destroyed type of guide. Let's just assume you got fresh off arrivals, you're in this first room, and you're lucky enough to even get into this first room, and you see something like this. You see a room with ripped up tiles, say you open the door, and the airlock or the fire lock closes instantly. Well, that's unfortunate because without a crowbar, you can't go in there. And you also probably just don't want to go in here because flesh does not do good in the vacuum of space. And these red lights, as you can see on the fire lock, are indicating that the area on the other side of the fire lock is not safe for people. You can always try to go around areas like this, aka go into maintenance. It's pretty uncommon that you're stuck in a one-way. Like, if this door didn't exist and this is the only way you would go, you could still probably get in there. You just have to get lucky. So, like, one thing you could do is just go into maintenance. And yeah, maintenance is a little scary, but all your PDAs have lights, and it gives you a tiny area of light around you. But this tiny little bit of light will give you enough light to at least see where you're going in maintenance. So don't be afraid of maintenance if it's maintenance is still a better alternative than a guaranteed spacing. Something that is very important to know, and I don't think there's no way new players would be aware of this. These O2 emergency closet lockers, it's a storage unit for emergency breath masks and O2 tanks. The description doesn't mention that they are guaranteed to have these in them, emergency suits. Emergency suit, an emergency suit in case of emergencies. And the only information it tells you is that it slows you by 50%. What it doesn't tell you is if you put it on the sidebar, which you might miss this pretty easily, and I have seen new players completely fail to realize that you can put a helmet on, is emergency suits come with a built-in helmet, which you must press 4 or click it to put the helmet on. That lets you be able to deal with space. It doesn't protect you from cold, but cold isn't as important for surviving a spaced area. And something also worth mentioning, often found in emergency closets, is an emergency toolbox. Emergency toolboxes are guaranteed to have an emergency crowbar in them, obviously if no one else got there first. And what is really good about these emergency toolboxes is there's always a flashlight as well. The breath mask is not as important because in every starting loadout, you will come with a survival box. And in that survival box, you'll have a breath mask and an emergency oxygen tank, and you'll also have a space medipen and an emergency medipen. The space medipen, if you examine it, will tell you it contains a mix of chemicals that protect you from the deadly effects of space, which is very true. And the breath mask you need to be able to breathe through an oxygen tank. So you take a breath mask, and it'll go in your hand, and you can either just put it on your face slot or press Z and it'll automatically put it on your face slot. And if you take your helmet off, you'll even see your model change. And also in these O2 lockers, or even firefighting lockers, you'll find oxygen tanks. They are either yellow or blue. And with the emergency suit on, you'll gain access to this suit storage slot, which the big oxygen tanks would go on. And the reason why you want the big oxygen tank is because the emergency one doesn't last all that long. So what you do is you just make sure your mask is up, which it is, and then you just press the button that says toggle internals. You'll hear that sound that indicates you are breathing, and on the right side, it'll even say on, which means you are breathing. And make sure you put your helmet back on. Now you are fine in the vacuum of space and don't have to worry about the lack of oxygen. In order to open these fire locks, you need to apply a crowbar to them. So all you do is make sure harm isn't on and simply left click a fire lock. And as you can see, we are in a spaced environment taking no damage. Which on the right side, you'll get an indicator, which I'll show you right now. If you're in a spaced room and taking damage, you'll have the low pressure symbol. The air around you is hazardously thin. Let's just theoretically say you are unable to get an emergency suit. Don't panic. You do die fairly quickly in space, but the space medipen could bail you out here. If you take the space medipen and just press Z, you auto-inject it. And you see, the pressure indicator is gone because you aren't taking damage from space. Yeah, your character's going to scream and tweak out a little bit, but this gives you time to find, like in this example, another emergency suit. Which you don't need more than one, but if you just didn't have one, it's worth looking for them. And it's also worth looking into the fire closets, because you're more likely to get oxygen tanks. So now if I just put my helmet back on, I'm totally fine. A little damaged, but being damaged isn't worst case scenario. It is worth practicing now due to the fact that spacing isn't instant. If you're going to run away from a spaced area and you're incapable of fixing it, you're just trying to survive, try to close the doors behind you, because due to the fact that I closed the door fast enough, this area is still safe to walk through without your spacesuit. Not everyone may be as fortunate as you are in surviving a spacing and having a suit. Also, if you're unable to get a large oxygen tank, you can always take your emergency oxygen tank and left click one of these canisters, which you can find in maintenance often. And all you do is, to get the most pressure possible, drag this pressure gauge all the way to the right, open it, and make sure you close it so you don't waste it, and simply eject it. And that will give you much more time on your emergency. You can also do this for your oxygen tank, but even without filling up an oxygen tank, they already last an extremely long time. And if you ever take your tank off, remember you have to toggle your internals again. And in this example, the fire locks went up because I opened the space room, but the lights aren't red, indicating that the other side is safe. Another place that has protection is areas like this. They normally have the EVA sign on them. However, they're normally command locked, so you have to get somebody in command to open it for you. But these EVA suits are significantly better because they only slow you down 20% versus 50%, and they protect you from cold. So that's probably going to be one of the other common suits you might be able to get your hands on, but emergency suits are much more likely to get your hands on them. And Cargo can even order emergency suits for people. So if you see Cargo and there's a lot of spacings, don't be afraid to ask them to order you. They can order you an Eternals crate from Cargo, which looks like this, which comes with 3 emergency suits, 3 oxygen tanks, and 3 gas masks or breathing mask, which also, by the way, gas masks count as a breathing mask. So as long as you have that and an oxygen tank as well, you could breathe just as like you could with a breath mask. Plasma fires aren't, well, super common, but there are occasionally shifts where somebody accidentally, a plasma gas leak gets ignited by accident, and the parts of the station will get too hot. So if somebody were to ever open a plasma container and you see this fire, well, A, you want to get the hell away from the fire, but you still can catch on fire with a fire suit. And if you were to ever catch on fire, just click the on fire indicator to stop, drop, and roll. That's a pretty somewhat hidden function. As you can see, the pressure in here is insanely high, and the fire suit helps you, well, just survive it. So like if I just show you with a health analyzer, like, yeah, I've taken 31 damage. It's going up by 3 or 4 per second. If I take off the fire suit, A, you start taking too hot, which the fire suit is protecting you from. Yeah, fire suits are good in fires. I don't really feel like that one needs explained, but worth mentioning. So that's really it. It's a basic how to survive atmospheric problems guide. It's hard to come up with a better way of doing it. The game's very dynamic. Spacing can happen very suddenly. You might not be prepared for it, but this should help alleviate some people's confusion towards the subject.